What is good, everybody? It's Devin here, and your guy, Coach B.
Coach here.
That's
What's
what's
going
up.
on?
And yeah, so you're probably wondering, like, what's up with this whole funky dunky looking boxes and name tags and everything? Yeah, you could say we done upgraded. We're on the up and up. We're moving up, as Fat Joe would say. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
listen, listen, you got some funny hip hop fucking references. But yeah, we're moving around doing different things, so we gotta move with the technology and take advantage of the technology. That's the way I see it. You know what I mean? We gotta keep moving forward with bridging the gap. We're on to something. So I just like when we gotta move in different areas, we're gonna use the technology what it's meant for.
Right, and with this setup we have here now, it's more practical, and not just practical, but also it gives us kind of special powers, kind of like wizards. We can
Yeah,
now.
you're a freaking wizard. You're
I'm,
voodoo.
I'm a fucking something.
You're a
But
fucking voodoo.
we're going to be able to bring people onto the show, and they don't have to be there physically. We could just go ahead and pull them in online. Very simple process for us. So it's going to enable us to go ahead and interact with our community a lot more, and of course live streaming capabilities here within the next couple of months. So that'll be super dope. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, so get used to this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and basically we just wanted also like what we're gonna do today. We're gonna remind people that might not know for the new viewers and remind the old viewers what it is we actually do here, what we do here. And some people have a different grasp on it, but I think our grasp is the right grasp because we're the one that created it. We're basically like how I see it, and I think me and Dev sees the same eye to eye. But I'll go ahead and run mine, and then Dev, you can run how you say it if I miss anything. But as far as like bridging the gap, we're looking at basically the idea came up as being like I wanted to have a podcast, a show, whatever. I just call it a show because I like to call it that because we do all kinds of different things. But basically, in that interaction, I wanted to interact with somebody from a totally different background, totally different beliefs system. Totally different. Not all totally different, but a lot of things are different. And age bracket, whether it was religion, creed, geographical, it doesn't, whatever.
Ethnicity, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it was, and just to sit down and have those conversations that people. It seems like the climate of now, and I can't. I'm not going to pinpoint it and blame it on the dude in the office right now, but it has gotten worse in the years. Because it's just not, when I say office, I mean up in president. It just seems like people are disconnected and they're scared to have conversations. It goes back to that saying, I mean, people fear what they don't understand and hate what they can't conquer. That means that you can't sit down and have a conversation about something and agree to disagree and get up from the table and still be able to keep moving without having hate or pushing a specific agenda on somebody instead of, just talking to respond instead of talking to understand. That's basically how I see it, and the idea came to my head, and I met up with Deb, and I think he would have been he was a perfect candidate for us to get this done.
Right, and I mean that was perfect to the key of basically how I feel about it. My only difference, what I don't even think it's a difference, really, just something I want to add on, is you know, it's just not just about the walking away and the resentment, because that's something that just happens, or it seems to happen every day. Is we have these, like, especially on social media, we have these conversations that we can't we avoid those conversations. Actually, sometimes we literally avoid the conversations that are hard for us to grasp. It's what this is about, is coming to understanding. Even if you don't like the other position, or if it's, at least you understand it to a point where then you can say, well, okay, I get this, and okay, I get that. But there's a lot of times we say, no, I don't get it, I don't want to get it, and it's pure ignorance, and we want to try and bridge that gap, so to speak.
Yeah.
But not just in mentally, but any kind of gap. Any gap there can be. any difference anybody can have, which is just about an anything. Everybody can disagree on everything, so we want to bridge the gap. That's what it's about.
Definitely. We just wanted to, yeah, just update people like our listeners and our supporters. Thanks, you guys out there, for the guys that support, the people that support. We're definitely going to push harder to get more support and get out there this year. And we're just going to keep going forward with it. So if there's any questions, drop them in the comments, hit us up. It's whatever.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point too. Is if you guys are interested, we will be looking for people to actually come on here and, like I said, do some guest and co-hosting with us some days. Just coming on here,
weird.
Do some cool side segments. I was actually thinking about doing a side segment, Coach. I don't know. What do you think about this? I'll pitch it live, or on the show. A thing called show and tell, right? Where we would grab, like, say, 2 fans of ours, right, like once a week, and we would have them come on here, and they would just bring like an article or a link or something from like a news source or just anything, a video, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, and they send it to us, and then we could watch it or read it or talk about it, and then react to it like in real time, whatever they brought and presented to us, and have a conversation with them. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm down for whatever's going to expand the brand and get people watching. I'm down for it, as long as we're not, getting too weird. I got a weird meter. It only goes up to about halfway.
You don't have to be a part of it. You just got to condone it. If it gets weirder than you can handle, you just got to take your hands away from the keyboard. Like, I'm not doing it. It's not me.
I'm like
just like the kid in the whenever your kids and like your sister or brother's like, I'm not touching you, and they get their finger as close as they possibly can to you, like, I'm not touching you.
Put your finger in the ear or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's whatever, man. Whatever we can find things that work. We'll see what the people say. I'm definitely with expanding what we're doing, and getting more people involved, because we're only successful if you guys are supporting. So, and in our motto always too, I want people to always remember this. We got to put this on next shirts, put it on the back or something. Support equals support. You know what I mean? Show us what you're doing. Show us what you're doing, and we'll look into it and see if we can coincide something together with and get something going with that. So I definitely believe in that.
Yeah, I agree that getting people's businesses and ideas out there, that's something for sure that we strive for.
We always made grassroots. Let's talk about that. Like, who made the T-shirts? Like, I don't, like, me personally, I don't know how that, well, I think we had conversations, like, I think we see pretty much eye to eye on it, but but there's going to be a day, if you want to be successful, that you're going to have to sit in a corporate office. But until that point comes, I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to work with the people that are giving back to the neighborhoods that I live in, that I support. You know what I mean? Like, that are getting things from getting money from our neighborhood and giving back. I believe in that process right there. And if I could move forward, I wouldn't change those relationships that we have with those people that we're building with to, like, quote unquote, sell out for a check. It's just yeah. I don't want to be no fucking sellout. I wasn't raised that way.
Yeah, I hear that. So, anyway, let's go ahead now and actually segue into the actual show, so to speak, now that we got all of our, our addressing out of the way.
Yeah.
So, anything new going on? I already know what I want to talk about, because I was making a big deal hooting and hollering on Facebook, but I figured I'd ask you first.
Oh, let's go. Let's get it. Get it.
So did you? I shared an article talking about that the diocese of Johnstown and Altoona, after the whole rape scandals, over the past 19 years, have paid $21 million.
Hush money.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And fines and stuff for the people they've been caught, sexually assaulting or abusing children, like in lawsuits and stuff, like to pay them up.
Right. Hush money.
Yeah. And
don't talk about it. Everybody that takes that money can't talk about it again.
Right, and this is crazy to me, which isn't even just that, and not even just the amount of money that it is. Millions of dollars just in the diocese of Johnstown and Altoona, which they're roughly, one of them's actually one of the most poorest community. Johnstown's supposedly the poorest town in Pennsylvania.
City in Pennsylvania, yeah.
And Altoona, just in those two dioceses, like combined, which is actually just one big one. Like I said, that's 21 mil, but 7 million of that 21 million was paid by an insurance.
Mm,
And
wow.
that's what got me. I was like, so you're telling me like what's that say about not just insurance companies that'll sell you insurance for just about anything? Like, hey, you want in case you
You want to touch little kids? We will insure you. Come over here. That's freaking crazy. They should be held accountable too.
oh, I don't think the insurance company should be held accountable, but they shouldn't be able to issue insurance for something like that.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I kind of mean. Like, you can't, that loophole they found or whatever they did, that they shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, outside of any other thing, like outside of any other church
Hmm.
or any other community, like Catholic wise, that is, it just doesn't, it doesn't make any ethical sense. And
Right.
I think the problem is that the churches can afford it. Because I guarantee you that insurance is expensive as shit. It has to be thousands of dollars or maybe hundreds of dollars every, like, not just like your life insurance policy where it's like 200 whatever. No, like I'm talking these people are probably paying like close to like $900 a month for their insurance to keep the kids in case something happens. They could pay that forward because 7 million. That's a crazy amount of money.
Well, I guarantee you it's way more than that because you got to look at what we're talking about. We're talking about the Catholic Church and, not knocking anybody's state. That's been around for years and way, 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 way back. And it's been doing the things it's been doing for years. And the crazy part about that, because we're in that area that you're speaking of,
Yeah.
and every time we drive by, remember when we were heading out to Hollidaysburg and to play the football tournament and all that, and it's right there. There's one of
We
those
drive
places.
by it. We drive by it. Yes.
We literally drive by the one that's out here. So, I mean, it's definitely like it goes all the way to the top, bro. It cuts off at a limit so you can't go no further and hold anybody else accountable. But this kind of stuff's been going on for years. There was that movie that they had, and I think it was who played. I forgot
Was it
who
Will
played
Smith?
in it.
No, Will Smith was in Concussion. Oh shit.
It was a I
It was a
think it
big
was
time. Yeah, it was a
yeah
big
he
time.
was
But I can't
he
think of
made
it.
some movies and they made it about that true story when they exposed things. I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s or something like that, and how far they were covering it up and what they were doing was just ludicrous.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like you're like that's a place like when you talk about somebody's spirituality and somebody's religion and all that, that shouldn't be a place where kids go and have to worry about being violated. That's just my opinion on it. I think most people's opinion on it,
Literally, I think that's everybody's. Well, you would think that'd
unless
be
you're
everybody's
involved in
opinion.
it,
Yeah, unless you're involved, of
unless
course.
you're unless you're involved in it.
And
So
like I said, I think to the clergymen, I mean, it's like that involve in it or partake in it. It's a loophole for them to because they can't marry or so forth. So it's their
it's
loophole
just
because
weird.
God doesn't say anything about it. So and it's sad is that you live in your book so close to that limit. You're living your life so close to that the limit of the words or the limitations that are in there that you have to try and find a loophole for those kind of things. It's
Well,
just
I went to Catholic schools from I went to Catholic schools and my mother wouldn't let me go to church at all. I had to sit in the library. I never, I had a conversation that when I was older, didn't understand it when I was younger, but part of the reason, like you're gonna get the education, anything you feel uncomfortable, you always go to that office and you call me. All right. So in saying that, like, and I was getting a free education that was going to help me down the line, and I looked at it like as an older and mostly it was the denomination, but when things started to come out about this stuff happening and stuff, we had conversations about it and was like, yeah, it was just like to me. Be honest, anybody that is in that church area, like pastor or priest, they creep me out to be honest.
yeah. Oh no, I agree. I mean,
They just creep me out. They're just creepy.
they give
And
me
I
that
just want
vibe.
to stay away from them.
Yeah, I agree. No, totally. Like they give me that vibe, And
Yeah.
maybe, and it doesn't help that the reputation, because other people are, other priests, maybe they don't partake in these particular acts, but it makes it hard whenever like you see these things, like especially whenever we have that whole case that the district, or not the district, the is it the DA, the district attorney,
Yeah. Yeah.
DA. Yeah, that whole thing that just came out, the biggest rape scandal in, United States history was right here like a couple months ago.
Crazy.
And
Crazy. So they've been doing that for years around here.
yeah, years upon years, thousands, 1,000 something kids, that they know of. There's they clearly think that there's more, but they can prove, they've proven 1,000, at least 1,000 of them, which is just nuts to me.
That's ridiculous. And there was a lot up my way. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, for those who don't know, and there was some caught up my way too, in predominant schools up there. Predominant schools up there. And I just had a conversation about about something similar today, but it was more or less like I can relate it to the power of just the power of people. Like, and the church is the Catholic Church is very powerful. They help win elections. They
Oh,
do all kinds of things. So they're powerful.
don't even
They're
get me
able
started.
to get away with it.
They got
So
they got their fingers
I
in so many
accumulated
pies.
it to some things get like swept under the rugs or overlooked because of the power of the presence. And I compared it to something like in Hollywood, all that scandals where people were signing checks off the parents, and the parents were just basically letting their kids go without running a check on them. My kid ain't doing this. My kid ain't going away for 3 days with you. No, without doing that thing, because of the power and it can be used in many different ways. If you really delve deep into it, it has a lot to do with power and fear too, and money. So it's just one of those things, bro, that needed to be exposed, and I'm glad it got exposed. And I think it is crazy that they're able to just pull out, all the records and start showing us what's really going on.
Yeah, and it's even crazier as it goes all the way to the top. I mean, to the top, we're talking the Pope. It goes the whole way there. That popes and popes past have covered things up on purpose. And like me personally, this is my opinion on it. I don't know how, if you're a Catholic person, that you want to stay a part of that affiliation. I mean, I would become a totally different denomination. I'd call myself a Catholic, but I wouldn't be a part of any of that. Like, I would just take away from the whole hierarchy. I mean, I wouldn't want to be I wouldn't even want any part of that. None.
Right.
None. Because
I believe
if my leader, the leader of my church, the guy who's supposed to be endowed by God, is corrupt that much to the point where he would okay it, I couldn't support that. I just couldn't. I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I get it. It's a comfortability thing, the community, the people you love, etc. But man, that is just
passed
crazy.
on from generation. It's passed on from generation to generation. You just think that's what it's supposed to be, and that's why the younger generation is affected by it, because they're impressionable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's easy to keep going on with that impression and putting that into somebody's head. And that's the thing about leadership. Like, your leadership should start in your home with your parents. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're the ones that should be, and so if it's being passed on from generation to generation, some of those things don't even come out in households because of the power that they have and are giving to them by their parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen to what the priest says. The priest, if you do wrong, we're taking you to the priest and he's going to talk to you. But I'm going to go to the grocery store for a minute. I guarantee you this is the type of stuff that happened. Guarantee.
Oh, I have no doubt. I bet you any money that's how it went down, or at least it was one of those things where, like, oh, I went to youth group, you need to go to youth group, or well, you guys can. I was here as doing the church and doing all these church things. We got to go do this. They were basically. It was just It could have been just parents using the church, kind of like a daycare.
A babysitter, like. Yeah,
right.
Like, I talk about coaching and stuff, like how that was used, and how many parents were so clueless. Like, I could have got away if I was a predator. How easy it would have been for me to get away with something, So it's just one of those things. So, and that kind of goes into one of the questions I have for you later. So,
Well,
Is that
hey, go ahead. Listen, we can go ahead and start those questions if you like. Go ahead if you got your question.
I want to ask. I want to go into something else first. I want to
Oh,
talk about something hot. Real quick. We can go into. I don't want to segue into that, but it'll get to that. Because I'm curious on this. I seen something this week that really I wasn't sure how to handle it. Like it was a morning show. You know who Kodak Black is, right?
yeah.
And he's got some sexual abuse charges coming up that he has to deal with in April. And so he was on the Breakfast Club, or not the Breakfast Club, sorry, Breakfast Club, Hot 97, which was with Ebro in the morning. And it seemed like they were trying to get him to incriminate himself and say something that he, it shouldn't have been, he has an open case. He shouldn't have, you know what I mean? He shouldn't, have to deal with it. So everybody was on the journalistic part of it. And us being like, that's pretty much what we are for, no matter how we want to look at it. We're giving our opinion on something. We're pretty much researching stuff. That's pretty much a journalist, and we're putting it out there for people to read. Mm-hmm. How far is it? Is there a question that you leave off a limit? To me personally, I wouldn't leave. If that's your life and that's what you're going on and you come up to this show, I wouldn't do it. But it seems like they didn't have the conversation with him before they said, okay, if you come up here, we're going to ask you about your cases. That's what I think responsibility, or just being a real person. Like, okay, you're coming up here to promote your stuff. We're going to ask you about these cases. And he really didn't ask, but he tried to bait him into saying something, antagonize him into saying, how far is being a troll go, or just to get your promotion and likes? Is it something that, how far do you go with it?
Well, if I'm thinking about it, from an ethical standpoint, I don't even think it's something you really bring up if you bring the guy on the show, unless, like you said, you have that conversation first and say, this is what we want to talk about with you. But at the same time, I mean, that is journalism. You might disagree, but what journalism is ambushing someone. It's getting the story from the word of their mouth and trying to goat them into saying the response you want. I mean, we've seen it. You've seen it on television, but it's the truth, though. They go around, they prod and jab at you, and they just want to get that little tidbit of information out of you, and they phrase their questions accordingly to get you to say what they want you to say. And like, at the end of the day, whenever you're in that business of with Kodak, and you're a rapper, or you're famous, and if you're just a famous person and you're gonna come up on a show, I mean, you have to learn how to handle. I mean, did he give up any of the information? I mean, it is.
No, he got up and walked away.
Yeah, I mean,
he told him to change the subject, and they didn't want to change the subject, and so he got up and walked away. And then, dude, antagonized, it was just a weird, uncomfortable thing to see. And I hope I would never have to do something like that for just to get some likes or attention like that, because that's what he was doing. He was doing specifically, and I believe that if that's part of your life, and you want to come up here and use our platform to promote who you are in your business and doing all this stuff, to use our platform, but I'm going to have that conversation with you. And trust and believe, the number one people that trust, like a Diane Sawyer or Barbara Wall, Oprah, they have these conversations with people. They don't just ambush them. They say, if I can't talk to you about it, I can't have you on the show. So how, basically what my question is the way that is there any journalistic, ethics anymore, or is it just about trolling and getting likes?
Yeah, hold on, hey, feedback. I got feedback. Okay.
You still getting it?
Hold on. No, I don't have feedback now. I think we're good. We're good. Okay, I don't have any feedback. What was I gonna say? Yeah. I think that trolling at some point doesn't become trolling anymore. It becomes this kind of incrimination, kind of shitty thing to do to people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think at some point it does. In which, if you want to talk about the line, I think right there, that what you just described is where you draw it. Do you know what I mean? Because it'd be one thing if you talk to him, and he said, okay, well, like, like, I'll say something about it. He, like, you didn't talk with him, you didn't have the conversation, right, before the call, or before he came on. You didn't have the conversation, but then you ask him about it, and then he opens up and says something about it. Okay, but it's whenever you start talking to the guy, and then he's like, no, I don't want to talk about this. I plead the fifth. I'm not trying to incriminate myself. And then what do? They keep goading you and goading you. At that point, you gotta walk away. I mean, you can't even. Why would I expect you to stay? Whenever you're trying to make me have a conversation about something I don't want to have a conversation about, especially when it's something so sensitive.
Yeah, and the facts are, the facts will never be out. It'll go into court. I just think, like, on both sides, it was irresponsible because, in all honesty, he didn't need to be there. Your music's popping. You just got out of jail, and he doesn't do interviews like that. But for some reason, his people told him, and I think it's a guidance of people too that you have around you, was like, well, you have to go up there, and it caused the whole scenario that they can be like, whether or not. To me, he handled it perfect. To be a young 21-year-old kid from where he's from, he handled it very professionally. Like, come on, man, what are you doing right now? And do just like a person that's been in this game for 20 plus years, was trying to, like, antagonize him to get him upset to do something on air just for likes, just to get their shit up. And I think it's totally irresponsible. I think it's totally fake as fuck. You know what I mean? To do shit like that to people because you just don't do it, because we don't know what the facts are of that. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what happened with the young kid, because kids are target. You're making money, you're being successful. So we don't know. And it seems like, people, in this era right now are just turning into just pieces of shit on the internet, to be honest. Fake.
It's because that's what's selling. That's what it is. That's what's selling. That's what people are into. That's what's attracting the views and the likes, and like you said, and that's what it's all about nowadays. Hey, we got likes, we got views, and everybody's enjoying it. It's the same way with news. There's a reason why, like, CBS and NBC and Fox, especially Fox, get this way. It's because they care about their demographic and what's gonna get them to like and enjoy the video, or to watch them, or listen to them. Like, oh, did you see this? Kodak, incriminated and talked about his rape allegations, blah blah. Like, I want to hear about that. That's interesting, right? Because if Kodak just comes on the show and he talks about his music, everybody's like, I've heard rap music, it all sounds the same, blah blah. I don't give a shit. But if I want to hear the dirty secret, the dirty secret. That's what people want to hear. So.
Yeah, I get that. I get that point. I just think it's one of those things, like, you have a conversation about. So I kind of blame both sides, because I'm saying from rip, if I represented that young kid, I'm saying when they call the phone, I said, you can't mention anything about his open case or he's not coming. That's simple. So that tells me two things. These guys recognize that he didn't have that type of people around him, and they tried to take advantage of it. And he better realize he needs people around him to take care of that type stuff. Anybody that's like you said, in the famous market, they need to have people around them that are not going to put you in a position like that. Representation, credible representation, people that have been doing it for years and they're credible in the game, that's going to take care of you. Because one slip up, if he would have slipped up and said one thing, he would have been screwed. And I'm glad that he knew, I got to get up and get the fuck away from these people. So I just found it very curious in the comments. Most people, I think 75% of people are like the interview was wrong. Were wrong. But I think it's 50-50, because he needs to have representation that says, nah, we're not going up there if you're going to talk about that. So
yeah,
that's how I look at it.
I had one more thing I wanted to say, and now it slipped my brain. It totally slipped my mind. I forget. I had one more thing I wanted to say about it. Yeah, it's gone now. It's gone forever, I think. It's gone. Yep. It's gone. Just nuked it. I don't know. I had something I was going to say. It's gone now.
It's gone. It's out of your mind.
It's gone.
That's all right. Well, we could just, move on. Move on to what we're going. If it comes to you, we're unprofessional professionals around
We'll
here.
be balls deep in this conversation we're about to have right now, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah," and then I'll
remember this? Yeah, it is what it is.
So
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what me and Coach here are about to do is, we're going to ask ourselves some hard questions about our upbringing and just about ourselves, and our opinions on things, to get like this evaluation, even if they might stir up some kind of emotion or whatever, and try and walk away and talk about this civilly, and try and set the example, set the bridging the gap example
Of what we do here, what you could expect if we bring you on here, type thing. You know what I mean? Because I like the shock value, but like I love the shock value. Like if I was able to like what we just talked about, that's a great segue. What we just talked about, I like the shock value. But if you told, like if we agree to a guest and we say, okay, you got this going on, and you say to us, well, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, we'll scratch that off the list, but I'm going to bring, the questions that I have, and I want to hear the natural reaction. So we're going to try to use an example of that, right? And ask each other and show what it is that bridging the gap really is about.
All right. So again, I'm going to let you start because you said you had a question that related to something we were talking about, and I'm going to let it go.
A lot of the questions had to do with. I think I'm gonna shoot with the first one. I always wondered this. I was like, I think I asked you this before, and we talked about it, but I just wasn't sure exactly. You know what I mean? I think we got into a heated argument about it, and it was more or less you had a belief, but I was like, you were around it before, and it goes back to the church. Why do you consider, if I'm saying this correctly, because I'm pretty sure I'm saying this correctly,
Go ahead.
are atheists?
Why am I an atheist?
Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody that doesn't understand what an atheist is, it does not mean I worship Satan, does not mean I worship anything that is... what atheism is a lack of theism. I do not believe in a God. I don't believe that there is a God. And I don't mean God as in the Christian God. I'm talking any kind of God. I don't believe there is any kind of God, right? I believe in a naturalistic cause for the universe, or something that can be explained by scientific, natural processes. Now, the reason why I'm an atheist, well, it's a pretty long, lengthy story. But I actually used to be a Christian. And I was going to church and stuff. It was like right around the time I got in high school, and I started going to a youth group. I was actually like a youth leader, and I was doing all kinds of activities with people, and I was talking about the Bible and stuff and Jesus. And then what happened was I started going to church because I never really went to church for the longest time. And I started going to church with my friends of mine, and they were, hardcore. The family that I was part of, hardcore Christians. I mean hardcore. I'm talking like, let me just explain this story and you'll understand why. So the one morning they had come in, we have a guy who does a lot of, I believe, services down in like South America, Mexico. I believe he came in. And there was like this big prayer thing at the end where everybody was getting prayed for, and it was like everybody started crying and weeping, and I wasn't weeping and crying, and I was like, what is going on? Like, did I not believe enough? Like, do I not, like, I need to understand what is going on here. And the reason why I thought was because, well, I don't read the Bible enough. So I started reading the Bible, and a lot of atheists will tell you one of the reasons why they stopped believing in, their faith was because they read the holy text associated with that faith. So I started reading the Bible, and I started in, of course, the Old Testament, because that's where the book starts. And it was so absurd, and there were things that I just couldn't comprehend that a God would do, flooding a whole entire planet. Just, and of course, he's a being that's supposed to know everything before it happens and whatever. And then in the book, he talks about how he's jealous, and he's made a mistake, and that's why he wipes out everyone on earth, because he made a mistake, but yet he knows everything. And you see all of these contradictions, and you go, wow, this is a hunk of horseshit, like everything in it. And then you would hear the arguments from my other Christian friends after a while, after I talk with them about my atheism. They'd say, well, we're New Testament people, but you can't have a New Testament without the Old Testament. And, Jesus tells people, slaves obey your masters, stuff like that. And then they like to try and apologize and say, well, use apologetics and say, well, that slaves were different back then. And I can't buy into that. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why, but fundamentally it just boils down to also like scientific stuff, where I just think that it's more feasible. And to assert that or that any god or any claim that you know how the universe ends and how it's going to end and how it started and all that is just nonsense to me. You can have a theory about it, you can have a belief about it, but to claim that a knowledge claim that without definitive evidence that 100% is the case, that this is going to happen, is like I said, it's arrogant and ignorant, and I can't get on board with it. So that's why I'm an atheist.
Okay. I get it. I don't know as far as like spirit. I'm a spiritual person. I mean, I just believe there's something bigger than us. I just think that we would be naive to think that our complication on how complicated we are, that there's nothing bigger than us that said, okay, I'm going to start this and see where it goes. I believe in the science factor of 2 that helped it grow. I believe in all that type stuff. I just believe there's something bigger. So it's you know what I mean? I just like used your word, or I think you used that word, pretty sure that you used
what, atheist? Yeah, atheist is definitely. Well, I tell you what, the correct term, and this is like something I was thinking about. I think about this a lot. Is I'm probably like an agnostic atheist in the sense that I don't believe there is a God. Period. Point blank. Don't believe there's a God of any kind whatsoever. But I don't know for sure I don't claim to know what caused the universe per se and everything that happened and whatever.
The Big Bang.
And the Big Bang, I mean, it could be even some kind of naturalistic thing that we don't understand and that we probably will never understand, and that's okay. That's why I use the term agnostic atheist. There are things that I don't know that I won't claim that I know, but I just don't believe that there's a God. There's not enough evidence to support that, and I won't assert that I know. So
okay, cool.
All right, so Devin's about to cook up a hot one, baby. Woo! Okay, so we were talking a little about science and stuff, so I'll ask you this one. So, do you have a hard time believing in, believing in science or trusting things you don't fully understand? And if so, why?
Do I have a... Wait, say that again. Do I have a...
Okay, so for example, like we had a conversation, like one day you just like randomly threw out that you don't believe, or you just randomly throw out there that you don't believe in like the moon landing, right? And then we talk about vaccines and stuff like that. Yeah. And I said, and that's why I said, do you have a hard time like trusting science or things you don't fully understand? Like, if something's hard for you to understand it or you don't fully understand it, you're like, well, no, then it must be this or it must be that.
No, I think like it's more or less a common fucking sense. I use common sense. They say they landed on the moon in 69. How long ago was that?
69? Well, it's about to come up on like 60 years.
Okay, 60 years from now, we haven't seen no progress from that. We've seen bullshit, like, once again. Like, I believe truly what they're saying about that, something like that, and we're using that as an example. It's just like common sense, and to me, that is using science. It's using what did Sherlock Holmes say? Using the deduction. Yeah, reasoning and deducting things.
Deductive reasoning. Okay.
Yes, I scored great in science class and biology class and all those things because I do believe in that stuff. It's not that I don't believe in that stuff. It's just when somebody says something outrageously ridiculous, that common sense tells you that, like for instance, like a distraction that they use a lot. Well, look over here, like a magician. Look over here, and if I'm looking with over here, but I catch them doing something over here, common sense tells me, yo, they're telling me a bunch of bullshit. So it's not more or less like if I don't understand it, I always try to understand something like we do here is try to understand what somebody else is doing or understanding or what their outlook of it on. I try to gather information. If I can't gather no credible information from that, pretty much like say I take my common sense and how I was raised and say if it doesn't feel right, usually ain't right.
Yeah, well, and this is kind of like a follow up on that because you said the word credible information, and me and you've had this conversation about like sources and things like that. And I feel like sometimes you have a hard time trusting like scientific people or people that are in science. Like if they say, well, yes, we've been to the moon and here's why, or like do you like the people that are saying about Musk and all them, or the NASA that are saying about our missions to Mars and stuff like that. Do you not believe those things are happening and we're trying to do those things, or do you think like that's all a hoax? That's all bullshit.
No, not at this point. I don't believe. I believe when
Okay.
they first said it, it was. So
Okay.
we're using that as an
That's actually
example.
that's
We're
actually
using
pretty.
that as an example. So I have to point at that example. I don't believe that happened then.
No, no,
Do
no,
I
no.
believe it
I
happens
wasn't gonna
now?
say anything rude. I was just gonna say that I find that interesting because it's funny is a lot of people who say they don't agree with like we landed on the moon back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them think that we never went to space and you can't get to space. They're like these weird flat Earth people or whatever. But no, that's interesting. No, I think that's cool. You know what? We'll some other time we'll have to talk about that because I think what you just said there is interesting. Like you don't think they landed there at that time,
At
but
that time, I'm not
you
saying
think
now. And,
yeah,
and,
okay.
and this is a question. Oh, that'll go right into the question I sent since you brought it up. You know, they fired Elon Musk because of what he was saying on the Joe Rogan show. He said too much. That's a question that I'll ask you right now. Um, what do you like? How like what would cause the catastrophe in the world? Right, like you could see it happen and it's coming right now.
What could cause a catastrophe in the world and it's coming?
It's
Um,
coming. It could happen any day now. And
oh,
you're
any
really,
day, any okay. Well,
yeah,
any day I couldn't say because I was gonna say climate change, but that's not gonna happen. I mean, it's
yeah.
coming, but it's not gonna be tomorrow. It's gonna be like 2 or 3 years from now where we're really gonna start feeling effects from it, and and so on, and then it's just gonna keep going until we start to reform. But that's gonna come too little, too late, probably. But if you're talking about Elon Musk and you're saying about probably AI is probably what you're thinking. Off the top
Bad,
of my head, I can't.
bad. And we
Actually, you
didn't
know
even
what?
have no conversations
Actually, you
about
know what?
shit.
I will say AI. AI is definitely a threat, but I will also throw in Middle Eastern extremism and the potential of nuclear warfare eventually.
That doesn't even compare to AI. Those guys, like over there, and these are the tough conversations because I think like we had these conversations before. Like you're a little weary of like Muslims and shit, extremists,
Right.
extremists,
Oh,
not
right.
all Muslims, but extremists. They don't have the numbers to do it, bro. They don't have the numbers. They
Oh, I'm
don't
not
have
talking
the
about like ending the world. I'm just saying
I
like
mean,
so,
extreme catastrophe where shit just goes haywire, where
most
everything's
most
like you can't
logical.
get in your bank account, you can't get food, like shit's fucked up where the military's riding around here. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm talking. Then we're probably saying I would say probably AI, but there's also things like gamma ray bursts and shit like that that literally right now, like in the blink of an eye, could wipe us out. And all what a gamma ray burst is like a star blows up somewhere far away, it goes supernova, and it shoots out like this ray of like gamma energy. Literally would destroy the Earth, like everything would kill it in a second, like done. Everybody here would be toasted, and that could happen at any moment. But we wouldn't even see it coming because it'd be moving at light speed. But I'm saying that that's something that could kill us right away. I'm not saying that that's coming any day. We have no reason to believe it is, but it could happen any day.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if that happens, we're not even going to know it happened.
Yeah, right. But AI, yeah, yeah, I agree. So,
I'm saying something that like totally would just like that right there, and I think that would be the one thing that we're closest to happening because I believe these sick rich fucks, if they decide to be like, you know what, this is what we're gonna cause a problem right now. I believe that. I believe that they have control of all that stuff where they can make it go haywire whenever they want because a human designed it.
right. Well, and
And
I was also going to throw in too that, AI becoming sentient or becoming self-aware is also a problem, especially if it sees us becoming as a threat. I mean, that's just ugh.
Yeah, I think that would be down the line. I think the people that have all the plans on it, I think are the ones that own all the patents and know how to shut shit down or turn it up, because that's what it is. It can't take in information that it don't know. It can't. You're programming it to do that information. And I just don't see that happening before the sick fucks of this world do something ignorant and say, we're going to say this and do this just because, that's what they do. I see that happening before anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Are you talking like data breaches? Like they could program AI where like you can't use your shit anymore, like your credit card, your debit card, shit like that.
Yeah, and they could they could just make total chaos in one day.
Right. Those things are interesting too because like you think about Equifax. Do you remember the Equifax breach where all that information, all that credit information was just stolen social security numbers?
Oh yeah.
Upgrade their shit and it was crazy because I don't know if I told you the story, but I used to work for iCore, which is a subcontractor for DirecTV. Technical service, so like I'd be on the phone talking to people about their DirecTV. A woman called me and she was a victim. She was a victim of the Equifax breach, and she was calling me to be like, hey, like, and literally, she wanted me to double check everything on her account. She changed her password, she changed her email, everything on her, and she was so scared. And that's just crazy to me. Is like, somewhat your whole life can be stolen from you, and it's not even your fault. And like all those, and Equifax, all they did is pay a huge fine, but they're not gonna fucking help the people that got fucked. People that fucked, they're fucked. That's what it is, and that's just crazy to me. Like the company, they got to pay a lawsuit to the government or whoever, and then what are they going to do? They're going to subsidize them a little bit of money, even though they could have literally, their whole lives are screwed. They might have lost their house, everything.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. That's one of those things that I just really look at like that's easiest and it's more practical. It makes sense. It can happen because we rely on it. We rely on this shit every day. Like, nobody goes anywhere without their phone. Nobody, you know what I mean? People, you don't even have to leave your house if you don't want to. You don't.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's
so you depend on all this electronic bullshit that any day they could just be like, hey, let's cause some chaos. Bloop. And I think it's that simple. So,
all right, I'm going to take this to a lighter note. So, everyone calls you coach for the most part. Everybody around you calls you coach. And I just wanted to, if I was, because maybe I'm not 100% sure in the story, and I would like to tell everybody else too. So why coach, right? Why does everybody call you coach? And why do you like that name so much? Like, why do you like that stigma? That title.
Stigma? I don't know if it's a stigma.
Well, a title. It's a title. Why do you
title? Like yeah, I don't think it's a stigma. Ever since, like, always, like, when I organize sports in school, like, say, I was always, like, the coach would grab me by the thing and say, I need you to go out here and I need you to be on the coach on the field, blah, 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 because I was able to explain stuff and understand the X's and O's and understand the things that we needed to get done. Even if we were just hanging out, doing a neighborhood thing, playing some ball in the backyard, I always took it to another level where I'm talking to the team that we're playing and saying, hey, if you would have did this, blah, 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 and it was recognized early. So I suffered a knee injury where I couldn't further my physical sport career, and it was suggested to me you should go into coaching. So at age 18, fresh out of high school, I started coaching in the little leagues around and just started moving up the ladder. Like a couple years I was a head coach and just winning championships. So everybody that I was coaching in the neighborhood, everybody just walked by like you have a kid that you got like 20, 25 kids on your team and they all address you as coach like you do to any coach that you're around. Right. So when they're walking past me in the streets, maybe their friends don't play on that team, but they hear them say, hey, what's up, coach? Blah, blah, blah. So that transfers over to them. They'd be like, oh, his name's coach. And then they're probably asking him, why do you call him coach? Oh, because he coaches us in this or he coaches that. I coach anything. Like, I remember this was one of the important moments that I knew what I was supposed to do. I think I was like 21, and there was soccer fields. It was a boys and girls club league, and they let us use their property, their field. There was a field on there, and I was coaching the field, but there's soccer fields and softball fields next to there. I left my football game, and I was walking down to go get in the car, and there was like little girls. They were only like 5 or 6 years old. They were probably a little older, like 6 or 7, and they were crying because they had nobody to coach, and they said they couldn't play without a coach, a certified coach. So I'm like, dang, there's no certified coach over here. They couldn't figure this out. So I was like, well, here's my certification. I knew jack shit about soccer. I didn't know nothing about it.
I didn't know shit about soccer. I didn't know how to kick a ball, nothing.
I didn't know shit about it. So I was like, run it down. I just know I didn't like these little girls crying because they can't play soccer.
Right.
Let's go play soccer. So I figured it out, boom, 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 boom. And then it turned into everybody's just asking me, hey, we need some help. Can you help us around here? And we just build an organization around it. And that's just what I'm known by. That's one of the names I'm known by. If it depends on who I'm around. I got like 5 different names. It depends on who I'm around, what they call me. So that's pretty much where the coach came from. It's mostly from the kids, and then it transfers over to the kids, to their parents and their friends and their grandparents, because that's what they say when they see me. They'd be like, hey, coach. If I coach them, they'll call me coach. So you know what I mean? The grandparents or the parents, if they come to the games, they hear that, they'd be like, what's up, coach? Blah, blah, blah. So it just transfers over to that.
Okay, so the second part of that question, though, was why you said you had 5 different names, right? Do you like coach best out of the 5?
It depends on what I'm doing. If it's music, I got a name, you know what I mean? If it's my parents or something like that, or, you know what I mean? My brothers and sisters, it depends. I know
you don't have like your sisters like call you coach or something. Hey, coach. No, that's not my name, sis.
But my nieces and nephews sometimes do. They'll say Uncle Coach or whatever. It depends on what's going on and where I'm at and what I'm doing. Right. I actually prefer, because that's what I want to transfer more skills into, is putting that into a show that I'm doing, which is Coach B. I just pulled that out because that's what I've been called for years. And if I was doing something else, I'd probably still run with that moniker, because I think it's easier for people to relate to, and I affect more people, because the people, as long as I've been called that for 20-something years, those people are now grown now. So that's what they're going to call me. You see what I'm saying? So it's easier for me to translate that into reaching more people and what goals I'm trying to create.
Right. So recognition.
Yeah.
Notoriety.
Yeah. Just being able for them to be like, oh, coach. What's up, coach? You know what I mean? And probably half of them don't even know my real name. You know what I'm saying? They just know that's coach. So that's pretty much what it is. Okay, I gotta quit. I got one now. It's my turn. I didn't have nothing to go with that. We were going back and forth. That shit all fit together. But I'm gonna go into this. Coaching has something to do with football, so I'll go into this one. How in the holy hell are you in Central Pennsylvania in Steeler country and you're a Raiders fan?
Oh boy. Okay, so this is actually a good story. My dad, his whole life's been since I've known him, since I've been born, he's been a Raiders fan. Maybe not watching a game every Sunday or whatever, but he's a Raiders fan. Nonetheless, he is a Raiders fan. I remember when me and Nessa, that's my sister, my oldest sister, then my only like full-blooded sister, we had to make a Father's Day thing, right? And we made him, and it's still up at his house. It was like we were like 7 or 8 years old. Made this Father's Day thing, and we just put pictures of us on it and decorate it with all Raiders shit, right? Now, let's fast forward. I'm like 14, 15 now, and I didn't even give a shit about football. I didn't play sports, nothing, because I lived with my mother at the time, and I didn't get to do organized sports or nothing, because she was moving place to place. I didn't get to go to, because I was always in different schools. I couldn't plant my feet and grow nowhere. So
right.
I'm 14, 15. I think 15. Yeah, 15. When I became like 15, 16, that's when I started playing football. And then I started like playing Madden and stuff, and like getting into those kind of games whenever I went to like that church group I was telling you about.
Right.
And I liked the Redskins. I don't know why. At first, I liked the Redskins. I was like, the Redskins, that's my squad. And because RG3 had just come in, and there was a kid that named Corey who used to play with the Redskins all the time when we played Madden, and he was like, RG3 this, RG3 that. I didn't know shit about football, so I'm like, RG3, RG3's the man. RG3's the dude.
You got influence, which most people do.
Right, and that's why I think it's funny though, because you would think more of a Reds. You'd believe me more if I said I was a Redskins fan, right? In Pennsylvania, would you believe me more if I said I was a Redskins fan over?
Yeah,
a
it's a lot closer, a lot more TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Action. Yeah, I believe that more. You'd see more those fans around than Raiders.
Yeah.
Just blew my mind.
Yeah, and what happened though was, I started hanging out with like my dad, and watching some of the games, because like whenever you start watching football, you get into it, right? So then you go over to dad's house and you're watching the game, and then you're like, I'm like, I gotta go with the Raider Nation. I mean, this is my blood. This is my dad. I'm wearing a Raiders thing right now, actually, because I got a rep. It says Las Vegas Raiders on it though, so no harsh feelings if anybody feels bad about that.
We gotta get you on this.
Yeah, right. Oh, I don't need that.
But basically, it's the influencer in your life. Wherever you get that influencer, that's where your team you're gonna go for. So I get it.
Yeah, I think that's most people. That's why I think Steelers fans are prevalent in Pennsylvania, because just about everybody's a Steelers fan.
You'll see it no matter where you go.
Yeah, and my dad was like in the 80s growing up and stuff, and he could have been on that bandwagon whenever they were like okay, and the 90s too. Early 2000s. He could have been on that bandwagon, especially, and because whenever I ask him about the Raiders, he just gushes about Rich Gannon all the time.
Oh yeah, winning that Super Bowl. I mean,
so
that's where, not to interrupt you, but that's what I was trying to explain to you before when you were like giving up on ranting about the Raiders. I was like, listen. This dude knows what he's doing. I don't care. You don't get out of touch of coaching. We're speaking on Gruden now. Mm-hmm. He knows what he's doing. He took Rich Gannon, which was a career backup player, and put him in a position to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. Whether he, you know what I'm saying? He put him in that position to win that Super Bowl. That was his doing. So, you know what I mean?
For the record, when I was ranting about John, what did I say? I said, I'll give him one more year, and after that, if he show results, I'm going to be pissed.
And what are you going to do, go to the Redskins, or you come over to Steeler Nation?
You mad about the Mike Tomlin play calls and shit? How about that? How about them Raiders, coach?
Yeah. You guys got us. I mean, you guys just beat us. We're the fucking shithole right now. I don't know what the fuck's going on up there in Pittsburgh. I was this close to like hopping the highway and going down there and it's just showing up at Latrobe. You're like, what's going on? What are you guys doing? So I get it, though.
You push Mike Tomlin aside. Let me get this. I got this, Mike.
Yeah, Mike. Let me take over the defense. You go ahead and keep doing what you're doing over there. Let me at least take over the defense because it's not working. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. It's my turn now. So actually we talk about your passions and stuff. What you're older than me, obviously, but it's funny is like I work at a shoe factory. People are your age or older. They've just kind of given up. On life. Like there's nothing, they're not driven, they don't have anything, they have no goals, they have nothing to aim for, they're not moving forward. But it's, it's cool meeting you, someone who's like, all right, like I got these ideas and these dreams and things I want to do, so let's just keep it moving. So I was just going to ask, like, what keeps you driven, and, why do you think you're so driven?
Honestly, I took the time and put myself in position because, years and you have kids earlier, and there's things like responsibilities, and you make those mistakes when you're younger. And I think this kind of tees in with the question I'll ask you. You make some kind of mistakes, and then you end up on that roller coaster thing. Like, this is what you have to do, that old school way of thinking. I wasn't raised like that. My grandfather, like when I got in trouble when I was younger, my grandfather owned multiple businesses. And he would help people. I would see he was able to help people. And when I got in trouble, I got sent to his house, and he used to make me like edge the grass with scissors. And he would talk to me the whole time and say, listen.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. And he would say to me all the time, being like, listen, your mistakes don't have to define your tomorrow. You always can chase whatever you're trying to chase. Just take care of your responsibilities the best that you can. And then when you see that opening come where you have a chance to just focus on what you've been trying to do for your whole life, you go do it. Do not go and punch somebody's clock and make them rich every day without going home and working on something for yourself and to leave your kids. Because if you don't, you're just going to leave them something that is pretty much meaningless at some point. Not saying everybody, some people ain't meant to be leaders. You know what I'm saying? That's the passion that I get. I get more passion out of seeing other people do things like that could put us all in a position. It's never just me being like, I got to get in a better position. Sometimes you fall short on getting the message across or you make mistakes. But my overall goal is waking up like, how can I get the people that are around me in my circle that are trying to bust their ass to do things in a better position? That's where I get that passion from.
Right.
So, yeah, that pretty much goes into like what I was saying, like, and that goes into your guys' area. That's what I like about your guys' area right now. You guys have the air, like how I teach mine, which is about your age, too, is I teach everybody I was around. And I think I told you this, like going back into the coaching, I was speaking to a school and they were kind of upset at me because I was telling them every kid ain't meant for school.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay. And we created a program where it says, I'm telling them kids, like, I'm not going to force you to go. If your grades ain't good, we're going to get you a tutor and help. But there's something you're good at. And we help identify that working with the schools to say, hey, this kid's going to end up with $80,000 worth of debt and not have a job. And he might screw up or he might end up in this, but he has this talent right here to help him. So that's where I get that passion, seeing other people and finding their talent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, was that a question?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know where that went. That was just a rant.
Oh, no, it was a good thing to elaborate on, but I thought you made it sound like it was going to segue into your next question. That's why I was.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty much saying about your error, your guys' error. Like your error is taught by like our error saying that don't do this. Like the conversation I just had with my grandfather. Go find something you're passionate about and put everything you got into it. Even if you fall down 8 times, get back up 9, because that if you look at every successful person, they failed way more than they succeeded. Way more than they succeeded because they kept getting back up. And I like this era right now, even though there's some things I don't like about this era, but that's the one that I do because it's so, like, the technology is so high. It's so easy for, like, if you get a passion and you just put a whole bunch of time into it and just bust your ass and sacrifice, that you can do it. And I think a lot of people in your age bracket relate to that this time, and that's what they're focused on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's pretty much the move. I mean, it's not everybody. I mean, I know who there are people my age and stuff that it's my generation that it's not, and they're actually falling into the same pitfalls that the generation that I would say that your generation is, the 9 to 5, the clocking in, right. Those kind of people fall into. It's less and less, I feel, as we keep going forward, but people are really falling into that. I feel them falling into that. Like my job, I'm not working my job. I don't work which mine's not a 9 to 5. It's a 7 to 5. I don't work my 7 to 5 to, make money. And that's just my goal. Every dollar that I get goes back into this and any other thing that I want to pursue. So I think that's how you need to see your time and money, because I mean, when you're working, what working is and what money is basically, time. You're just giving time of your life away. And you got to see, are you investing that time into things that you want to do that will fulfill your life, or are you going to waste that time and sell your time to somebody else for, a currency that, is kind of meaningless at the end of the day. So
yeah, because you can't get that time back, and that's pretty much like how I look at that type things like, and I tell as many people as like, you can't get that time back. You can always go secure something. If your passion is going, you can't get that time back that you just busted it for years. And I think that goes on, like I just talked about, like different things, mistakes and responsibility has where you have no choice. I get that. But the people that are young, you know what I'm saying? I think it's a different generation. People are understanding that college is just some people ain't meant for it. Go after your dreams. And I think if more parents did that for people,
Yeah.
And just more or less accepted it and said, and encouraged it like as young as possible to say, this is what he's good at. Let's figure out how to help him get in that position and be a lot better.
Yep. And just another thing to add on there, the go to the college mentality is what's kind of infected the parents and stuff is, go to college, go to college, go to college, because it gets in our schools. It's all over our schools that the colleges are in your, when you hit 17, 16, colleges are in your ear every day at high school. They're like, oh, you need to go to college. You need to do this to go to college. You need to do that to go to college, college. And you can't tell me that colleges aren't paying your high school to, advertise there, to get you to come. And it's crazy to me is like all these colleges are, breathing down your neck. And from that time, they don't even give you time to think, because they try to say this is the only option you got. Even the tech schools come to your door and say this is the only option you got. You got tech school or you got college. And
that's it.
And that's
you
it.
Can't do nothing else. You can't build your own company. You can't do this. You can't. And I think it's just crazy because this country was built off that, Dev. Small businesses.
Yeah, it was built off people that didn't. It was, and I think that's just everything in general. Everything was built off somebody that at first didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and
just
they
figured it out.
Yeah, and they figured it out. So that's what I'm saying. You didn't ask me a question. That was kind of a comment you made again. Do you have any more questions? Because I have two.
Yeah, go ahead and ask you. I was saying pretty much about the era of like, do you think like this era is more better than my era or my grandfather's era? Pretty much what I was getting.
So, okay, that's actually a good question. Do I think this era is better? I would say my generation is better, because not because there are good people in your generation, and I'll get into that in a second, because actually that's what one of my questions pertains to. But there's people that I think that are very ignorant in your generation, because it has a lot to do with how they were raised, because they are not with these new ideas where, people are included and everyone is equal and everything else. And, that's going to be a problem and an issue for the future. So, it's something that really you want to change, but you just can't. And this is the question that I had, because this is something I noticed out of, your generation, my father's generation, my mom, is people having I notice a lot of people in your generation are like addicts for like drugs and alcohol, you know what I mean, and etc., whatever it may have you, and I can't say my generation's much better yet, because I gotta let them grow up to see if they're actually gonna have that lifestyle where like every day it's a drink, every day it's a whatever. But I was just gonna say, do you think that your generation has a problem with these things? If so, why? And then your personal experience with it.
I think people from our generation, it was like a normal thing. I would come home, you would come home, it would be around like your parents would come home from work and have a beer. Grandfather's drinking a scotch, that type of thing. As far as like statistically, this generation has the worst problem of abuse. Whether it's just that people are going into more treatment and they're keeping because they're able to make money off of it. I think the farther you go back, the less treatment and statistics that they have, and more people are more prideful, especially men, especially in the community where I'm from. People have pride where they won't go get help, and people just overlook certain things. So it didn't, and this generation, I think, is so much like softer, and the shit that's happening right now is out of control, bro. They're giving, you know what I mean? And I think the generation right now is way worse than my generation, because my generation, whatever we were doing, you could get off it that day. The shit that's happening now with these pills and drugs, you can't get off of that. Once it's out of your system, like we would do, like whether it was cocaine, crack, there was no heroin in my generation that is like what it is now. And the legal heroin that they're prescribing.
Yeah, right.
You can't get off of that in a day. You can't go to detox and get off of that. You could actually die in detox from doing these type of things. Alcohol, you can too if you over exuberant yourself. My experience, I've seen it all through my family. I over exuberant in alcohol sometimes because that's what I like to do. I don't, I think I know, I think it probably stopped me from doing certain things in my life or put me in positions where I made some mistakes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think that this generation is way worse off. And I think that the legalized drugs are making it worse than anything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was gonna interject with what I was saying. What I meant, like, I can't say that for sure yet, is because, like I said, I gotta wait for people of my generation to grow up into their 40s and see the lifestyles they're living. I mean, because right now, like you know, like
you're just saying, are they going to get out of it?
Yeah, like, are they gonna get out of it? Like, is it a phase because they're younger? You know what I mean? Like, they're just trying the shit and whatever. And I agree with you what you're saying, because they're not making drugs now to, you know, like, to enjoy yourself. They're making drugs to keep you a fucking client, to keep you a customer. Right. You know, so and that customer's not just like the Joe Schmo down the street. It's the Fed. It's everybody. It's the government. I mean, some of the government agencies, I believe, almost want you to be addicted to drugs or something like that. I mean, like that whole EpiPen thing that's going on now. Like, they're giving out Suboxone or whatever it is at the pens for right. overdose on narcotics. They're giving those out for free.
Well, that's not Suboxone. Suboxone is the brain blocker. Yeah, they're giving out the Narcan.
Narcan, yeah, that's it. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, but they're giving that out now. And, you know, like, and I was just sitting there thinking about it. I mean, like, so what they're kind of saying, which, you know, I get it, but I don't, is like they're just kind of creating the supply for it, or they're not really fixing the problem. They're treating it, you know, and they're not even treating it. They're just putting a Band-Aid on it. And, you know, the guy works at, basically it's like this. Guys are working at, like, knife stores, and then, like, instead of, like, taking them out of the fucking knife store, they're like, you know what? Let's just put a Band-Aid on that one cut you got. And then whenever you keep getting cut up, we'll just keep that going, you know?
Right. Yeah. And plus, bro, if you do the actual research, like, this wasn't like this before, for past recent years. I'm pretty sure it started happening, like, the research I've done was around 10 to 15 years ago, when the companies that are supplying these drugs and giving kickbacks to making laws are the same companies that are treating the problem. So they don't give a fuck if you get clean or not, because you're still going to be a customer.
Right, because they also sell you the treatments for it. So
yeah,
so even if you want to get better,
it's a circle.
Right,
it's a sixth circle they send you on.
Yeah, just like cigarettes. Vape companies are owned by cigarette companies.
Right.
So, and they put like quadruple the nicotine in it to get you addicted. They're doing the same trick, different tool now. So. Yeah. And that's funny too.
This is a different scenario. And that's one of the things, like, in speaking, I'm glad you kind of brought up some talk like that. In speaking like that, that's the difference. Like, I don't think that some people, like, it maybe in your age bracket, you probably understand that, but you probably thought that was going on unless you did the research for years, thinking that was normal. But it's not, because before there was certain aspects of it that they would do certain things for, like they would worry about certain, and I'm just going to be totally honest. If once it hits the middle class, if the senator's son is strung out on fucking heroin, they're going to do something about it. If it's in the inner city and they can all profit off it, they're not going to fucking do a damn thing about it. Yeah. It's just that simple. It's that simple. It's all revolved around money and control. That's all it is.
Yep. No, so, I mean, I don't disagree. I don't. Like I said, I've done my research on, like, you know, the epidemics, like the crack thing that was pretty much manufactured. It was a manufactured thing, and you know, so I've done. You got to
be a chemist to know how to make crack. Ain't no fucking chemists in the hood at that particular time.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So like I said, I agree totally. I agree. Like I said, I just wanted to know what your opinion was on that, like, in particular, because I just know from my experience, like, I have people that are alcohol. Like I have family members that are alcoholics, and I know
Hmm.
people in my family that are addicts. And really and realistically, this is the truth. I believe that if you're an addict, everyone is an addict to something. It doesn't have to be,
To something, yeah. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol.
right.
If
I
it
mean,
brings your life down and you can't perform, you're a fucking addict.
yeah. Well, I mean, you can even be a performing addict. Like I said, my dad's a functioning alcoholic. I mean, he comes home, he'll drink, but I mean, he goes to work every day, gets up, loves his kids, yada yada yada. Takes care of his bills. So whatever, right? There's people that are, and you can be addicted to a multitude of things. I mean, sugar, caffeine, porn, you name it. You can be addicted to it. So. I mean, you see my strange addictions. People eat fucking couch cushions. Couch cushions,
What
like
the
what?
fuck, Deb?
Right?
Are you secretly eating fucking couch cushions and
No,
fucking?
I'm not eating couch cushions. I'm
Let me
eating
find.
bowls. I eat plastic bowls. I microwave plastic bowls and then I eat them. That's what
Let
I
me
do.
fucking find out you're eating the fucking drywall and shit.
Taking pieces of drywall, like I'm punching holes in my wall, eating little pieces like chips or
Yeah.
something.
No,
That's what I do.
everybody has something they lean on, man. I don't give a fuck. Just people have different. They're wired wrong, and they get caught up in the wrong thing to lean on, and it's harder, and it can affect you more. Or
Right.
some people are wired different, where it can affect you more, or they have certain problems that have nothing to do because they'll tell you this in any kind of treatment center you go. Because I worked in a treatment center and also been in a treatment center as a client.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the chemical that you're using. It has to do with the issues that you got going on with you. Whether you're wired wrong, you got emotional problems, you got depression problems, anxiety, there's a list of them. You got to identify those ones and get the proper help. And then you don't need, there's some people that definitely need to be on some type of medication. Like you can't have a schizophrenic
Schizophrenic,
walking around
yeah.
here. He might just jab up like 6 or 7 people for no reason. But there's certain people that are so chemically off balance that they need. But every time, and I think this goes into the question that I'm going to ask you next. And I think like everybody doesn't need a fucking pill, yo. They don't. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need a pill. All they need is like that snatch up the arrow where I'm from is like shut the fuck up, stop being a weirdo, sit down, and I'm going to tell you. And it goes with the parenting. It goes with you know what I mean? It goes all together with that. So
Right.
that's the kind of question that I wanted to ask you. Like, because this like bothers me. Like I sit around, like people are so soft nowadays, man. And that's the era where I come from, where you don't like you get smacked upside the head if you do something freaking dumb. You don't win a trophy if you lost. You know what I mean? That type of era. Why is this era like teaching these kids how to be so soft? Like we'll use an example like bullying. Like back in the day, I didn't like bullying. I got bullied until I fought back. And then as I got older, I didn't let nobody else bully anybody else, even if they were my friend or not. Don't do that shit. But nowadays, it seems like, everybody's like, oh my God, we gotta go. What do you think that is? What is that?
Oh,
What's
okay.
that?
Okay, so two things. I'm going to say two things. So one, bullying is something that is just it is a part of human nature. We judge people, we talk down about them, we whatever. It's a part of human nature. We're never going to get rid of bullying. I don't know why the fuck we keep acting like we're going to get rid of it. Like when you see all the signs that say stop bullying, stop bullying. Right? And if you got to snitch to the teacher on little Jimmy because he's, he's pantsing you in front of all the high school girl or the high school girls or whatever, fine. I get that. But I mean, like, bullying is like, I think it's almost like a rite of passage for some people they got to learn how to handle their shit. I mean, I was bullied, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And this is a good story because when I was in high school and middle school, for one, I was always the new kid, especially in middle school. In like elementary school, I was always a new kid no matter where I went because I was moving around back and forth, same places, like 5 different schools. I was always the new kid. So, I was always starting fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the new kid, there's always like this period where like everybody's excited about you, like, oh, it's the new kid. And then like after that, they want nothing to do with you because, most kids and, middle school people are narcissists. And you then have to deal with like this like feeling of like, oh goodness gracious, everybody loves me, to like, oh God, no one actually gives a fuck. And you have to sit with the loser table or whoever. and you get made fun of. I got made fun of because I was small. I was an easy target. I was scrawny shit. I'll put up a picture or something of myself how I looked. I was real
You're
sexy.
still a scrawny shit.
I am still a scrawny shit. But I was trying. But hold on.
Oh my
What
God.
the difference is how I handle that. Because
Right.
instead
That's
of like
the key to it.
instead of okay, you just called me a scrawny shit. What did I do? I said I am still a scrawny shit. Do you know what I mean? I didn't like get all like, no, I'm not, and then because
and
that's
what you said was key. Let me interrupt you right there. I think because this is very important part. It's how you handle it. Like, there's different ways to handle that type of scenarios without balling up in a ball. And I think this is what they're teaching the kids right now is like, you automatically run and you go tell somebody what's going on because that's your rite of passion. Now that kid, that bullying's not gonna, you're gonna be an outsider now. You ran and told. Why, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just being like most bullies.
I don't even think it's just that you're an outsider part of it. It's that what you've done is instead of dealing with your own problems, you now depend on somebody else to take care of them. Because you say, oh, I got to go tell the teacher now, or I got to go do this now to deal with my problem, instead of looking at the person face to face and being like, what's the deal? Like, why, like, what are we doing here? Or not even letting it bother you. Like I said about the, yeah, or beat someone's ass. Like the ginger thing when I was in high school, what did I do? People would use it negatively. I used to get offended, and then what happened was I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna own this shit. And I'm like, that's right, I'm gingerlicious.
You gotta look your truth. That's basically what it is. Because what I've learned through through my life is growing up, like everybody has a purpose. Like, or you're just that small percentage of people that deserve to be in a jail. You know what I'm saying? That means that you're just sick in the fucking head. But everybody, if you just can't agree with them, that you don't have to be around them. But how you handle it is, I think the key thing is that right there is how you handle it. You can't fucking ball up and fucking go run and tell everybody. You gotta handle it best with that scenario. Right. With that scenario that you have going on right there. And the scenario ends. The scenario ends right after that scenario, especially like like you're saying, in a high school setting or a school setting. Everybody's gonna know that you stood up for yourself, and they're gonna leave you alone. It's just that simple.
And it's again, we now want to go to my second thing, which is the parenting aspect of it. Where do you say? And this is just how I feel, like hitting your kids, there's a difference between hitting your kids and beating your kids. It's okay to hit your kids. It's not okay to beat your kids. I mean, you could smack your kid on the ass when he's little and say, hey, don't do that, which I know back in the day, they had the spoon, the paddle, all that shit. I've had my ass paddled.
Get anything. What are you talking about? My mom used to throw these at me if I got out of line.
Right,
when I was a teenager,
I don't think that's okay. Like, I don't think that's okay to beat somebody, right? Because that could be traumatic. But which borderline on abuse, especially if you're like someone who's like fuck, like I don't believe in all that. But you can hit your kid because what it reinforces is there are consequences to your actions, and you have because what happens is kid goes. Like say like my little niece. This was just something I noticed the other day, right? Like she's sassy, she talks back, blah 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 blah, and she's watching a fucking show on Netflix or whatever, or there's an advertisement. No, it's on YouTube, and she's watching advertisement. She's like, I want the advertisement to go away. It's taking too long. And I was just sitting like, holy hell, it's 10 seconds. But the thing is that she's complaining to my mom, which would be her nana, about it. And what does she do? Nothing. She's complaining, she's whatever. And then she starts throwing fits. She thinks she can get away. She tries to see how much she can get away with. And nothing happens. So she's going to keep acting that way, right? Until someone, a wall hits her and says, no, you can't act that way. And like when I'm saying, like, in society, we have, in my generation, we have people that have been acting a certain way. And because of the generation where the people up above them are telling them, no, you can't act this way. We have to treat everybody, even if they're being a total asshole, we have to treat them with respect and blah, blah. If someone's being a fucking asshole and they need to be told, like, this is wrong, they need put in their place, then you got to do it. That's just fact. Right. So you got to do it. So
yeah, and I just truly believe that that's what's being put on. You used a perfect example, like that type of stuff. Like certain behavior just can't go on, and it starts in the household with the parents. You know what I mean? You definitely got to prepare your kids to walk outside that door. Like, you're going to run into some fucking dicks, whether it's teaching them how to handle themselves and not be you don't have to be the person that's going out there to causing these issues. You be the person that goes out there that stands up for those issues.
Right.
And that's and if you just let a kid do whatever they want inside their household, they think that they can go outside until they run into some kids that don't have it like that at their household, and then it turns into, you know what I mean, big issues, or anything can happen from that type of stuff. And I just think, like you said, everything with the kid starts at home.
Yep, totally agree, because that's where they spend the majority of their time. So until, you know, they get to the school years and everything. But, you know, yeah. All right, well,
we got through it.
That was a lot of questions and stuff. But look, this is what we mean, Bridging the Gap crew. If you stuck through it with us for this long, this is what it's all about right here. Right here, look at that. We asked some tough questions. And you know what? We got, I think the passion meter for both of us at one point got to like a strong 7. And then it was only there for like a second or two, and then it was back down. We can have these conversations, people. Like, this is what it's all about. Having these conversations, asking these hard questions, and then answering them.
And what I found, what I got out of this, like, we definitely had this conversation when we decided to do this, that we weren't going to tell each other what the questions was. Pretty much all of them coincided with, like, saying, okay, I know what we can ask because of the past conversations we've had, or past episodes, or just knowing who each other are. And they pretty much coincided. Yeah. And that wasn't planned at all. No script around here.
Yeah, no, what was crazy too was how they were, for some reason, they were, Zach Funkman's calling me right now. I have to answer that here in a second. But I think it's really funny that all of these things, like, kind of coincided. Like, every question kind of led into the next. It was really weird how we had this set up. Like we didn't even know what questions we were going to ask each other, honest to God. And all of the questions somehow segued, like, perfectly. So it's very interesting.
Segue into Bridging the Gap. That's all we gotta say, because it's that simple right there. Is like having those conversations that we've had over these times. We were able to, it was very obvious the things that we had to ask, and going forward, that's what we're definitely going to do with people, because we're definitely, like, I'm always going to, like, if we bring somebody on, I'm going to want to know about, I'm going to research this person. I was always taught that too about my grandfather. You go ask somebody or go get a job or do whatever, you research that person so you know what you're getting into. Just you want to know, so what you can ask them has some kind of pertains to anything that can help or anything that you could do better.
Right. All right, so I want to wrap this up then, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Leave a like, please, or a heart emoji, or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know, whatever thing it is that you got to do to like it. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think, or what what your opinions are. It may also, if you would want to come on the show, we'd like to have you on. And finally, share this video wherever it might be, via Facebook, YouTube, or probably here I'll have this set up for Spotify. So to y'all that want to listen to a podcast while you're at work and you don't like those, like, 15-minute ones, like I don't, I hate them. There's like why? A podcast should be an hour long, minimum. So if you want to start listening to our podcasts and stuff, yeah, we'll have that up on. So
let us know the best way you want to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you got a platform too, we'll try and set that up as well. But as always, stay beautiful, everybody. Take care of yourselves. See ya.
Bye.